You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos Country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Welcome in for another Building the Broncos episode. Great to have everybody in for another Broncos Country time together. I'm your host, Carl Dumler, and of course, I have my good friend, Mr. Nick Kendell, after his time hunting down some mushrooms earlier this week. Good to have you, Nick. How you doing, buddy?
You know, I have first time actually having morel mushrooms. Found a bunch, fried them up myself, made a mess of the clean kitchen, so my wife didn't appreciate that so much. And unfortunately got some poison ivy in the face here, down here. But, it was a small price to pay for those tasty morsels. Morels, I think they go for like $25 a pound. And stumbled across some. I'm like, wow, these are good stuff. So they were really tasty. Just finished them up today. So it's a small price to pay for a little bit itchiness. And today's podcast is brought to you by hydrocortisone, which is saving my life.
Well, glad you have that, man. Wouldn't want you in pain through our time of talking Bronco football. As we got a good subject coming up today. We're going to be talking about the strength of schedule, but more so based on maybe Vegas's projections rather than last year's records, because last year's records really haven't proven to be great indicators from one year to the next. I mean, look at the 49ers going from having the number 2 pick to the Super Bowl. Yep. So, welcome in, everyone. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH, Nick at Nick Kendell MHH, and the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. Make sure you subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts. And also head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Nick has an article on this very subject, so make sure you head over there to read it. It's part of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And also know that our podcast is powered by Overtime Media.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Well, Nick, you're the one that wrote the article. So how about you kind of explain to our listeners why this matters and what it really means for the Broncos?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing for the Broncos is that, let me see, pull it up right here. The Broncos, according to last year's strength of schedule or last year's winning percentages of their opponents, have the 12th hardest schedule in the NFL, and that's a combined winning percentage of .512. So over 500 gives them a kind of a middle of the pack schedule, but as anybody knows, there's a lot of turnover that happens in the offseason, and the Broncos honestly might have two of the opponents that could see the biggest change as far as flipping the script of how they're going to be next year. And two examples that I gave in the article, two teams are going to be vastly different. Number one, probably the team that's changed the most in the NFL this past year is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously. You have Bruce Arians entering his second year as the head coach. They have a very good young nucleus on offense. I mean, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, but now they add Rob Gronkowski and a guy named Tom Brady, who's probably the fourth best quarterback I've ever seen play. And I'm just going to flame all the Tom Brady fanboys out there. Peyton Manning's my GOAT. Sorry, guys. But so that team has changed a lot. Last year they went 7-9, just as the Broncos did. And guess what? They're projected as the fifth best team next year, fifth best in terms of Super Bowl odds, according to Vegas. So that team's changed a lot. And another team that's changed a lot just because of one player is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, last year the Steelers did not make the playoffs, but if anybody watched any Steelers game last year, having to watch Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges play quarterback, oh my God, horrific quarterback play. Quarterback obviously super important. Even if Big Ben's average, it's going to be a monumental upgrade for them. So that just changes the schedule a lot for the Broncos. And Warren Sharp, who over at Sharp Football, the Broncos, and Warren Sharp, who over at sharpfootball.com does a lot of amazing statistical stuff for football, which is kind of harder to do due to the smaller sample size, but still really good statistical stuff he does over there. One thing that he's done is he's created a model for predicting strength of schedule that's far better than using last season's win and loss percentages, but rather goes based on Vegas's odds. So what teams are going to be this upcoming season according to Vegas, and using that to determine the strength of schedule. The Broncos actually have one of the more difficult strength of schedules in football, ranked as the 28th hardest or the 5th hardest and the 28th easiest. So the only teams that have harder schedules than the Broncos, using Vegas's win-loss predictions, is the Falcons, the Giants, the Jets, and the Raiders. So Denver, I think they had the second hardest schedule last year, according to Warren Sharp's model, and it turned out much closer to actuality than the previous season's winning percentage. So going to be worth watching. It's going to be very difficult. And I mean, even expanding upon that, 9 of the Broncos' opponents are predicted to have at least 8 wins. And so, I mean, you have the Titans at 8.6, Steelers at 9.1, Bucks at 9.7, Patriots at 8.9, Chiefs at 11.7, and Saints at 10.4. So obviously you have the Chiefs and the Chargers again. Oh, and the Bills at 9. So really it's a tough schedule for the Broncos this year. It's pretty well evenly spaced, which is nice. You don't have a lot of hard games back to back to back. But, I mean, overall it's going to be one tough game after another this season. So we'll see how it turns out. But it's really it'll be a fun one. I mean, and I got a little bit of flack on Twitter and Facebook for the article, but because, you have to be the best to beat the best. But I wrote that exact thing at the end of the article. So if the Broncos do get to the playoffs, they'll be battle tested.
There you go. Well, I want to get to a couple super chats here before we get too much into that. Stu, really appreciate it. Hi, all. And hi right back at you, Stu. Glad you could join us here this evening. Always a great pleasure to have you here. And then Joe Turner coming in with a $20 super chat. Really appreciate it, Joe. And just everybody, thanks for joining us once again to talk some Bronco football. And I've already seen a few different questions that we're going to get to, I'm sure, as we go through the show. Of course, Prince of Gamora going to the Raiders. Logan Ryan is going to the Jets, has gone to the Jets. I'm not quite sure where that one's at. But obviously, we've talked about cornerback help for this team. We'll get into some of that here as we go. But getting back to your topic here, I guess one of the best ways I've heard to look at your schedule is look at the quarterbacks. I mean, as much as we like to look at the entire roster, it really does come down to quarterback play. And I asked you before the show, and listeners, you can comment if you have a different answer than us, but who is the worst quarterback the Broncos are playing this year?
I mean, looking at the schedule, you could argue that it could be Teddy Bridgewater, but probably the safest bet would be whatever quarterback you're playing. Maybe it's going to be two different quarterbacks from one game to the next, but the Chargers quarterback situation with Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert. Tyrod being, kind of a guy who's going to bounce around the league, probably will go to a few more teams before he's out of the league. And then Justin Herbert, a complete unknown. But, we'll see. I mean, maybe it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe it'll be Sam Darnold. But it's overall, I mean, talk about the weakest quarterbacks. I think it's more impressive how many Hall of Fame quarterbacks are probably going to be playing this year. Oh, and of course, whatever the Patriots quarterback situation is going to be, that slipped my mind because still I have the Patriots, obviously are a good team. But Jarrett Stidham / Brian Hoyer, not the best.
Yeah. Terry Randall, really appreciate it coming in once again with another hashtag Nick's Beer Fund.
Oh, well, I better crack that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nick, come on, man. Get on this. But
give me a second. I'll come back around to it.
No, you're right. I mean, the quarterbacks the Broncos are playing this year, it is a long list of greats. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is obviously at the top of the list of quarterbacks in the NFL. Drew Brees going to have to play the Saints this year. Tom Brady, once again, seems like we can never escape that guy. I'm trying to think even. I mean, well, our division might be the easiest quarterbacks we play all year other than Mahomes.
You have Matt Ryan, MVP.
Yeah.
Ben Roethlisberger. Who knows how he's going to be, but, I mean, he's probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, that'd be crazy if he wasn't. Ryan Tannehill was playing close to an MVP level last year. Josh Allen, really interesting quarterback coming to Denver, coming kind of more of a I know he's from California, but played at Wyoming, so somewhat a little bit of a homecoming there for him. So, yeah, the division's going to be tough. And, Derek Carr doesn't really – I'm a big Derek Carr detractor, mainly just to tease Raider fans. But, it's a good schedule, a lot of good teams. And going through that, again, guys, go to Warren Sharp's website. It's really an interesting one that they have a Tableau table there. And they have one where, you can do a bunch of different filters based on the opponents. And the Broncos actually are going against really not great run offenses this season. That's actually surprising to think. You have the Bills and the Titans. But other than that, not good run teams, especially explosive runs. However, they're going up against – I think they have the second or third hardest schedule in NFL when it comes to pass efficiency or pass blocking efficiency. So if the Broncos do put up good pass rush numbers, sacks, hurries, QB hits, QB pressures, etc., that really should speak well to how talented this team is because they're going up against some good pass blocking units, offensive line and quarterback, obviously in tandem there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And it really is, like you said, the numbers there that they can show you just different avenues of what the team's going to be facing this year. It's very, very impressive. So definitely go check that out at what is the website again?
It is Sharpfootballstats.com. So they have a bunch of really unique stats. I mean, from personnel formations to explosive offensive plays. I mean, you just mess around with the different tables and stuff, and you can put in different sliders. It's a really unique one. You can go down a wormhole and be messing with that for hours.
I'm with you. And Libby, there we go. I got it right? Close enough, right? With that schedule, we'll find out this season if Locke is the future or not. Hard to disagree. I mean, it seems like the teams that are lacking a quarterback have a great defense. I mean, the Chargers, they might have the best. They might have the best defense in football.
Yep.
And, I'm thinking that the Steelers, obviously, they had I think the number 3 ranked defense last year.
According to DVOA.
Right. Nad Ludlow, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. So, again, it's going to be not the cakewalk you would hope for. And I know like you said, the original strength of schedule going off of last year's records kind of shows the team is kind of middle of the pack when it comes to strength of schedule, but so much does change in the NFL from one year to the next. I mean, think about 2011, Broncos go from the number 2 pick to making the playoffs next year to the next year being one of the top teams in football. I mean, it was just a 2-year boom, boom, boom. And I know adding Peyton Manning obviously changes things pretty quickly. But that's just, again, the way of the NFL. Adding Von Miller, one player like that can change how a team is viewed. Bosa added to the 49ers. I mean, he about won the Super Bowl for him.
Yeah, he absolutely beat the tires off of Eric Fisher. So, and I mean, the biggest thing last year, the 49ers were 3-13 coming into the season. They actually flipped that, went 13-3, and Vegas had them at 8-8. But Vegas looks the way it does because they don't make bad bets. Vegas is taking home money. So if you're using last year's win-loss record, that's not as good of. I mean, he's been Warren Sharp again, using it for years to assess strength of schedules and using Vegas as predictive win or loss, and it's just been much more predictive. So as again, epidemiologist here, statistician, I'm looking for predictive models. And I'll stick with the one that's much better than, Broncos, whatever the win-loss schedule is last year, and stratifying that to their current schedule. So it'll be a tough one. Yeah. I do like how it's spaced out. I think that's the biggest thing. So it'll be a good one. But again, if the Broncos make it to the playoffs, they earned it. Yeah.
And Mr. Orange makes a good point. In 2015, I think we had a top 3 hardest strength of schedule. It's about how the team plays. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you're right. It does come down to just how teams play. This doesn't factor in injuries. Patrick Mahomes goes down. I know they still beat the Broncos last year, but they're not a top team in football without Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady goes down in Tampa Bay. How much does that take them down the chart from a top 5 team to wherever? I mean, they don't really have much of a backup quarterback situation there. And so there will be a lot of different things that factor into it. Some teams will do better than people expect. Other teams will do worse than teams expect, just kind of how the NFL goes. And, I mean, I do expect the Broncos to have a better season, but I'm not sure how much that's going to change their record. I mean, they did go 7-9 with a 4-1 finish, and, a couple wins might be a huge deal considering the teams that they're going to be playing.
And, I mean, football is such a volatile game. The ball can bounce one way. The Broncos should have beat the Bears and the Jags last year. However, they probably should have lost to the Raiders week 17, and that Chargers game they won at home was gifted to them thanks to a pass interference penalty 30 yards down the field. So that's just the way football goes sometimes, a little bit of ebb and flow. But I think the Broncos right now, I saw Nick Wright had them at 3-13. What an absolute trash clown take that was. Gosh, just quit. Log off.
Who was the guy that had him going 2-14 last year?
Adam Rink. And as soon as the Broncos won 3, Broncos country pooped on him on Twitter. So I'm expecting the same. I'll be ringing the alarm if that comes to it. But right now, I kind of have a wide net for the Broncos. Just obviously it's a weird offseason, a young offense, new offense. But I think anywhere, I would say 7 wins right now is their floor, unless you see some, really horrific injuries happen or a lot of bad luck. But I think 7 to 10 wins. That's the range that you see them at. Last year I had them at 6 to 8. So they're definitely heading in the right direction. Yeah, right. But again, you got to play the games, and a lot of things can change. And that's a good point too. You're bringing, obviously, we have the Saints right now, week 12, who are the Saints going to be by week 12? I mean, you could have a bunch of their defensive players go down. Drew Brees could go down. So I think Vic Fangio talked about it it's not so much the teams you play, it's how they are when you play them. Because, I mean, the NFL, it's tough. All these teams are pretty good. It's not like college football where you have Ohio State dropping 60.5 against, Alcorn State or something. And so, a lot of parity in the NFL. That's the name of the game. That's what makes it, in my opinion, the best league in all of sports. So it'll be interesting to watch, but Denver definitely has a tougher schedule this season, and it's due to a lot of reasons. I mean, Pittsburgh being much better. Titans are going to be good. The Bills, obviously a really good team, finished second in the AFC West last year, means they got hooked up with the Steelers and the Bills, the Steelers and the Titans, two potential playoff teams this year. So we'll see how it all works out.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah. And I'll keep telling people this till the season ends, that the Broncos are the team with some of the greatest variance in the league. Like you already said, I mean, they have one of the youngest offenses in all of football. They're going to be relying on a lot of rookies to perform at a pretty good level.
I would be shocked if they weren't the youngest offense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think Bowles might be the oldest guy.
I think he might be. Don't quote me. I mean, Jake Rogers is the oldest guy on offense, but he's not a starter. So I really think it's Bowles.
Okay. Yeah. But, it is. It's a very young group. They're going to have variance from one week to the next. They're going to have some great games like the Houston game where they explode for 30 points. And then they're going to have other games where they might struggle to score because players are not on the same page. We're talking about also a shortened offseason. I've already seen some people asking questions about the offseason of how that's going to go. We don't know. It really could be where they're going. You got 2 weeks to get ready for the season. And then you're telling all these young pieces to come together and find a way to be unified, to have the playbook down perfect, all those kind of things. I do think that there could be some struggles with the offense early on where the defense does have to carry them. And so that could lead to some losses that if those games were later in the season could have been wins. And so, yeah, I do. I think this team could have, if they make it into the playoffs, like you said, that they'll be battle tested, and that young core having all those games together, that could lead to them being one of the more dangerous teams if they get into the playoffs. But they might struggle to get into the playoffs just because of those early struggles.
Yeah, so, I mean, they are fortunate they get the Buccaneers early. You have the Steelers early getting some rust off, probably Big Ben. So they have a chance, although going to Pittsburgh is going to be a tough game. I think the Steelers are being slept on pretty mightily right now. But talking about the oldest players on offense, it is Garrett Bowles, 27 years old, born May 27th. So birthday coming up here, everybody. And Juwan James is just a week older, June 3rd. And then Graham Glasgow, also 27 years old, July 19th. So a bunch of 27-year-olds on that offensive line. But Garrett Bowles is indeed the oldest, unless you're counting Jake Rogers, 28. Also Deontay Spencer, 28. But he's more special teams than offense. I'll be, probably with the wide receivers the Broncos have.
Yeah. Yep. Jeff Green, he's always our guy on the spot with our information. Melvin Gordon turning 27 in April, Bowles in May, James in June. So it looks like it's Gordon.
No, Gordon is Bowles is about to turn 28.
Oh, okay.
So they're the year old.
I got you. Okay.
They're the same age now.
But right. But I mean, we're talking about the fact that, again, these guys are pretty darn young for an offense. When you're talking about, I know some were talking about wanting to still bring in Jason Peters. Now he'd take up the average by a whole year just by adding him to the offense. He's 38, I think.
Yeah, I think Peters I do believe he's 38, going to turn 39 this season. And he wasn't that good last year, but I mean, you add some stability there on that side. That being said, I think he did have as many penalties last year as Garrett Bowles. So because his name doesn't say Bowles on the back, maybe he'd get a little bit of a pass. But
I'm sure early on he would.
And I mean, he's been incredible for a while. So.
And then Paybe is what? Hi guys, thank you for all you do. Numbers always get me. I don't know if it's part of their name or if it's just a number thrown in there. But hi guys, thank you for all you do. Stay safe and keep up the great work. Go Broncos. Pabby, really appreciate it. And you do the same. Everybody out there, continue to be careful out there. I mean, there's still plenty going on. I know some places are reopening, obviously. Won't get into that too much, but make sure you're staying diligent in everything that you're doing, and because we want you guys back here with us every single week. And Neil Jones coming in with a super chat. Everyone should follow you both on Twitter. Agreed. And can you try to predict the starting secondary will be in week 10 outside of injuries?
Well, are we talking 4, 5, or 6 guys?
Let's go 6. Make it bigger. Let's get the bigger the better. So let's get the for sure ones out of the way. AJ Bouye, Justin Simmons, Jackson,
Kareem, obviously, those are the 3.
Right, Kareem. Sorry, Jackson.
Yeah.
Then I'd say Callahan if he's healthy. So we're saying that he's healthy.
There's 4.
There's 4. So we got 2 more to go here.
I'm going to go with Ojemudia. I think he's going to beat Bosby. I do think so.
Yep.
And then, honestly, my other guy, I'm going to go. You said Duke Dawson was your sleeper.
Yep.
I think Isaac Adams is going to beat him for the safety nickelback spot.
You shut your mouth.
So that'll be interesting to see. But I'll go with Yadam as that other guy. I mean, Duke Dawson last year was replaced by Will Parks because him and Devontae Harris not great in that middle half of the season, the middle part of the season. They got displaced. But I'll go with Isaac Yadam. That being said, maybe Trey Marshall is the guy. I thought he was okay at the end of the year. I don't know if he has great range. You want to have a little bit more versatility. But the biggest question for me, obviously, as we went through it, Callahan's health. Will he be healthy? That changes the dynamic completely. And then it's Bosby versus Ojemudia at the outside spot.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm substituting, and Duke Dawson is my final guy. I do think that he's going to be that one that kind of emerges this year that people don't expect. And, I mean, obviously, I did the giveaway last week on it. I got to stick with it.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go super dark horse here. Broncos signed the guy that I've been calling for here, Darqueze Dennard, the former Bengals guy for a long time. He's still out there. He signed a 3-year, $15 million contract with the Jags, and then for some reason that fell through. Weird offseason, obviously, with everything going on. So when he's been in the slot, he's been one of the best slot cornerbacks in football. He's versatile. He's better in zone. And I think he'd be a really interesting fit here. And Donatello and Fangio have done a phenomenal job with former first-round picks that flamed out elsewhere, bringing them in. I think Dennard in this defense would make a lot of sense. And when you're going up against the passers that we are this season, the weapons cores that we're going up against, I think that'd be a really good get. So obviously it's not my money. I can talk about it, but I'm going to go with Dennard in that one.
Okay. All right. Steve Hearn coming in here with the super chat. Offense starters playing more preseason, no OTAs. I'm guessing players would push more for OTAs than preseason games.
Yeah. Maybe they'll have a couple of those combined scrimmages or something. I mean, everything's weird, but yeah. And that might make the beginning of the season really funky as well. So we'll have to take everything with a grain of salt just based on the information we get as we go. I mean, right now, let's just hope. I don't even care if it's a weird offseason or slow to start or anything. Please, let's have football.
Ooh, we got another dark horse here. Eli Apple from James Campbell.
Yeah, he's another former first-round reclamation project. A lot of talking about former first-round Big Ten cornerbacks here. We got Prince Umukamara just signed, Dennard's still out there, and Eli Apple. So,
just seeing who everybody. We got a Trey Marshall fan here. We got a Bosby fan.
It'll be interesting. I mean, there's Pro Football Focus did a study this past season. Is what is the most important thing on defense? Is it star players or is it the depth of your defensive players? Sean Wade in the supplemental draft. Now this person's stalking me on Twitter for sure.
Oh, Bill, coming in with the good stuff.
Yeah, so that would be interesting for sure. Apple is interesting. Obviously, he bailed on the Raiders as well. So maybe we can have the who was it? Emmanuel Sanders jettisoned. He was going to go to the Chiefs. Oh, Peyton Manning wants to play with me? Screw the Chiefs. I'm going to Denver.
Vic Fangio wants me? Screw the Raiders.
Right? Or I can play behind Jarrell Casey, Von Miller, and Bradley Chubb with Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson behind me. Heck, sign me up. Also, I mean, that's what I'd be about too. If maybe sign a 1-year contract, you can get yourself some money if you come to Denver and play in this scheme and then leave the next year. So we'll see.
All right, everybody, make sure you head on over to huddleuppod.com. We have a Building the Broncos hat there. Bought a few myself. Sorry, I'm not wearing mine yet. I haven't checked the mail the last couple days, so it could be in. I need to get down to that. So I'm hoping by next week I will be wearing the hat so you guys can all see what it looks like, and I can get my one sent off to. I'm trying to remember Mr. New York. I can't remember what his name was off the top of my head, but appreciate you all being a part of that last week. And again, make sure you're heading over there. And we got all of our super chats from last week. Appreciate all of you being a part of this. And make sure you're getting your questions in here. We'll start getting to some questions. This is kind of a good one. I am Supreme 22. What happens if the play calling hampers Drew Lock? Then he's not the guy.
I mean, it's hard to say. That's such a abstract thing. I need to see the play and everything going on. I mean, it's possible we have a Baker Mayfield effect where I'm not going to say that's going to happen, but like if the tackles are super bad and the play calling's scheme is uninspired, then maybe Drew Lock looks poor. I mean, it's possible that, if James is hurt and Wilkinson plays like he did last year and Bowles plays like he did beginning half of last year, that could hamper the offense. There's also a chance that the wide receivers being super young takes a year or two. I mean, we saw Cortland Sutton his rookie year, early second round pick, pretty good, except the Fant jet sweep. You know what? I saw you mentioned, bring that person back up. Who was that?
This one?
No. Beagle, Charlie Beagle. I saw him mention, Hy-Vee earlier. Shout out to Hy-Vee. So that's used to work there back in the day. Maybe he's an Iowa guy as well. But that's the biggest thing. And maybe potentially the tackles situation will hurt the Broncos. I mean, that's a possibility. I do think that with Drew Lock being, from what I saw on tape at Missouri, better at handling edge pressure than interior pressure, Broncos solidifying the interior offensive line, obviously Cushenberry, Reisner, Glasgow instead of the tackles. Maybe that's something that's not as big of an issue, but we'll see with Shermer. I mean, we had, who did we have on from Big Blue View, Carl? Do you remember the name? We interviewed him when Shermer first came over.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay, well, he covers the Giants, and he said that Shermer, one of the things that drove a lot of fans mad and really scared them offensive schematically is that they left the tackles on island early and often. So if that's the case for the Broncos last year, down the stretch especially, we saw Scangarello do a lot to protect the tackles because, honestly, they needed it. And really also handcuffed Lock because of that. I mean, they were playing super conservative offensively, schematically, except the Texans game for God knows which reason. That's a big reason Scangarello is probably gone, that he babied it too much. But that's a concern. So it is a possibility the tackles will implode this season. I mean, it is a possibility. We'll know it when we see it. But that's the biggest concern outside of the play calling. Or if Lock's not there.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
It's hard to imagine. I mean, I don't want to dog on Scangarello too much, but there were a lot of issues last year. I mean, he just, and I agree, they're Buona Beast. It is the best of them all. No, Scangarello, the first quarter, when he could script things out and he could imagine a game, he was great. But when it came to actually trying to figure out what the defense is going to do and how they're going to attack you and how do you counter that, he had no secondary attack. It's kind of like a pass rusher. If you can win with that first move, that's great. But there's going to be a point where they stop that. You got to have a secondary move to make them have to really think about that. I think of Von Miller. Obviously, his first step quickness and his ability to bend around the edge is second to none. But that spin move to the inside is what sets up that outside move as well. I mean, those two things combined just make him so deadly. And it's the same with an offensive coordinator. Yeah, the last few offense coordinators for the Broncos have not been good. I mean, it's kind of like who was the guy before Scangarello from the
Callahan.
Raiders? No. Was it Callahan?
I think it was Bill Callahan.
Okay. Anyway, he was terrible. When you bring in a guy that came from a predominantly play action offense, and that's what he was successful in, and getting himself out of the pocket and making plays on the move, and then you do zero or hardly any of that when he comes to the Broncos. Bill Musgrave. There we go. Excuse me. Thanks, guys. You guys are always on this. I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. It just kind of shows you got to make your offense fit the players. And that was one thing, I guess, that I really liked about the draft was the Broncos got players that fit the scheme. And so now they have to kind of build that all together to make sure it all works together. But it just seemed like in the past they haven't done a great job. They pretty much said, this is my scheme. You're going to play in it whether you like it or not. Kind of like I don't want to dog on Gary Kubiak too much because, I mean, he's kind of a legend in Denver. But at the same time, I was not very impressed with his work with Peyton Manning. I mean, when you sit there and tell a guy that has spent most of his career in the shotgun, hey, we're going to stick you under center and make you turn your back to the defense and take away one of your greatest assets of being able to see exactly what the defense is doing and make quick decisions, it was not working very well. It clashed a lot. And I'm not saying Peyton Manning was going to be great in that 2015 season, even if you left him in his regular system, but I think he would have been a lot better than what he was trying to do there with the Kubiak system. So again, this is where you have to balance all these things out. And like I said, it might be where the tackles are the weak link and they are the problem because, like you said, that is one thing Shurmur just has not adjusted in the past of helping out his tackles a whole lot.
And we talked about it multiple podcasts since the draft has happened. Broncos had issues at wide receiver. They probably needed two guys, especially offensive speed. They have questions in the back seven, linebacker speed, cornerback talent. They had questions at tackle. You weren't going to fix every single thing in one draft. That's how it is. That's why the Broncos have not gone above 500 3 seasons in a row. So they fixed the wide receiver speed. We have a couple dice rolls in as far as the back seven goes, linebacker and cornerback. Tackle's still a concern. Guess what? Top of the priority list for next year. If Bowles is great and so good that you have to tag him, fantastic. But again, we talked about this. Something we talked about last week. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But if not, you're going back to the drawing board and pretty much for offensive tackle. Not the case with Mike Munchak, but pretty much historically for offensive tackle. If you don't get a guy in the first round, you're probably not getting a guy.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about this real quick. It's not that I didn't like Scangarello in certain aspects. He had certain strengths. He was very good, like I said, at scheming early in the game. But there were other things that I didn't like. He got very conservative, especially in the second half of games. I think about that Minnesota game where the Broncos are up big, and all of a sudden they give Minnesota that chance to really come back. There's a few other games. I mean, and it was easy to see some of the other coaches, Vic Fangio, were not exactly happy with how conservative he was getting. And so going and getting a coach like Pat Shurmur, who is willing to take some chances, you're kind of going in the opposite direction in some ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in today's NFL, Vic Fangio will talk about it. Elliott will talk about it. You got to score points. You got to have explosive guys. You got to take chances. I'd rather, honest to God, have Jameis Winston throwing 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, having the best yards per attempt of any team in football last year, I believe, rather than, Alex Smith not throwing for a freaking touchdown to the wide receivers the whole season. So, I mean, some of those interceptions are just long punts.
Yeah. I really like this question. What should we expect from Shurmur's play calling? Will he try to establish the run, or will he take a deep shot and try to open up defenses at the start of the game?
11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, a good amount of play action with the inside zone. That's been a big thing for him. I think we'll see a good amount of counters and duo blocks as well. I mean, that's something we saw last year with Mike Munchak that pairs, I think, better with Mike Munchak. So less outside zone. We won't see that classic Jake the Snake bootleg, John Elway bootleg. That West Coast kind of style is out. But much more quick offense and also hopefully vertical shots up the seam. But again, Shurmur is historically, while he does like his personnel stuff, he will try to maximize guys that they'll do best. So we'll see. Again, my biggest concern, come back to it, is leaving those tackles on an island when you are in 11 personnel and how that's going to affect the pass game as a whole.
Yeah. And about the run game, when he's had talented running backs, he has gone to them quite a bit in both the run and the pass game. When he was with the Vikings, they had Dalvin Cook. And in those games, he was explosive. He was a weapon that they used often. It might have led to some of his injury issues there early on. But, at least for the Broncos now, they have a two-headed horse here with Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. And so I do expect there's going to be a lot of games. Something you had talked about was before we started the show was about the run defense and the schedule the Broncos are playing, that they're not playing a whole lot of great run defenses. Is that right?
Run offenses. If they're not playing many explosive run offenses. So.
Oh, okay. So, my bad. I had it reversed. Reversed in my head there. But still, I mean, I think there are going to be games where you're going to see them lean very heavily on the run game. When teams, they're going to spread them out and they're going to say, okay, you want to stop our passing offense? We'll run it down your throat. I mean, this is what you want to do as an offense. You want to dictate how a defense has to play you. And you want to be able to beat them in multiple ways. And right now, that's one of the nice thing about the Broncos is it does look like they're going to have the pieces to have a strong running game. It looks like they're going to have the pieces to potentially have a very strong passing game too.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's kind of like a good pitcher. Like Greg Maddux is a great example. You have multiple pitches in the arsenal. So when you have a pitcher coming or a hitter coming up that he just cannot stay off the breaking stuff, he swings through it every time. You can go to that if you want. If you're a guy who's really bad at keeping up with a heater, you can go to that if you want. So it's just you have multiple weapons, multiple pitches in your arsenal that you can go to depending on your opponent. You don't just have to play your card. You have multiple cards, and you can dictate those matchups week in and week out. So obviously that'll come down to the tackles obviously holding up. Drew Lock showing that he's an above average quarterback, which, we saw flashes, a lot of hope there, but 5-game sample size is a 5-game sample size. We don't know yet. So that'll be key. But I agree with you in that regard. As also, it's not so much that the Broncos wanted to move on from Scangarello. It's that they really wanted Patrick Shermer. So I think that's an important narrative. We don't want to spin that any other way. Scangarello, if Shermer did not become available, Scangarello is still here. And we're hoping that he improves year 2. But Shermer was a guy that multiple teams wanted. Yeah.
Right. And that was the main thing, was just Scangarello, he made a lot of rookie mistakes. Mm-hmm. He had some good qualities that I think he can have a future in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. He just has to learn to trust his system a little bit more, trust his players a little bit more to continue down a path of strength. I mean, it was one of those things where he really did get terrified. Oh, we got a touchdown lead. We got to protect that. And he just got so conservative that it just was 3 and outs. And by the time the other team got ahead, well, the offense is completely out of sync. There's nothing they can do.
And, you know how you protect a lead as an offensive caller?
Keep scoring.
Score more freaking points.
Yeah.
Keep it on. I mean, you especially against the Kansas City Chiefs. You're up by 28. I don't care. Score another touchdown. Obviously being up by Kansas City by 28 would be incredible. But go ahead, girl.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joseph Geneva coming in. Go sign Prince of Kimura. Sorry to burst your bubble. He got signed today by the Raiders, of all teams. And then, of course, and Jason Peters to 1-year deals to give us the insurance we need to get through the season. Love listening to you guys. Appreciate you tuning in, Joseph. And, maybe though, I did see an article today, I think it was by Bleacher Report, saying the Broncos were one of 5 teams that have contacted Jason Peters. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure they've contacted a lot of people.
Calvin Beecham's
kind of hard.
Also.
Yeah. I do think there's still a decent chance that they go try to find somebody, but I do think also they really do like Wilkerson. And even at that tackle spot, they still kind of like Wilkerson. I mean, they're going to give him a true fair chance to go win that job against Bowles. I still think Bowles wins in the end just because athleticism trumps what Wilkerson can do. But
Wilkinson. Driving me nuts.
Wilkinson. Yeah, sorry. Wilkinson. I'm sorry. Man.
It's not your name day.
I know it's not.
It'll be interesting for sure. That concerns me, but there are some cornerbacks still out there. The one we haven't brought up yet is Drake Kirkpatrick, also another former first-round guy. So it'll be interesting. I didn't want to get to this question, Carl. I know you're looking at the questions there, seeing if we can find more. But Jeremy Bobruff coming in here. Thank you very much for your question. Would you mind DT coming back as a reserve receiver and a mentor? For me, this is something that made more sense before the draft when the Broncos didn't have 3 rookie wide receivers coming into the camp. And it would make sense if DT wanted to come in and play a role where odds are he's not making the roster. But now that the Broncos have all these young guys that are going to need reps, it doesn't make as much sense to me. Also, outside of your top 3 wide receivers, you really need the 4th, 5th, and 6th wide receiver to play special teams. And a lot of times, unless a guy's been a special teamer their whole career, you're not going to see a guy like DT come in and all of a sudden become this gunner / pure special teams reserve guy. So if we were playing Madden, that'd be interesting. If he wants to come in and be kind of a older statesman, if you will, for preseason training camp, et cetera, that would make sense. I just don't see a spot for him when it comes down to the 53-man roster.
Yeah, that is the main issue. It's either he's got to be a starter or he's not on the team. And I just can't see him being on the team or even the Broncos really wanting him to be a starter. You want those young guys to win out because they're the cheap options. They're the guys that are the future, not the 1 year kind of deal that you do with DT. And I do think that Sutton is a good leader. I've heard very good things. I mean, I don't want to give too much insight to. I was at camp when he and Emmanuel Sanders got in their fight.
Yeah,
and that was actually Sutton stepping up and saying, "Put in some work, buddy." I mean, if we want to get down to just the overall details of why that happened, it was Sanders was jogging, and Sutton didn't like it. And
I love that he did that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's again, the young guys have done a great job of stepping up. That's something the Broncos have emphasized in the draft, is finding guys that are leaders, that are willing to be voices, and so far they've done a pretty darn good job. And that's kind of why they liked Reisner next to Bowles, was because they thought he would be a better voice than Leary. Leary was not a very patient person, and I mean, given I don't know how much patience he had to show with a guy like Bowles, but yeah, it is. It just, a lot of the young guys are stepping up and being big voices in the locker room, and it's great to see. So I think we already have the leadership that you need.
Yeah, and also somebody who's raved about Cortland Sutton's work ethic and leadership and et cetera. Very prominent, famous former NBA coach Larry Brown, who coached Sutton and basketball at SMU. So you're wondering why Sutton's out there grabbing balls above the rim. Got that basketball background, kind of like a power forward out there. So Sutton, great player, great young player. And just because the Broncos drafted Jerry Jeudy doesn't mean Sutton's going to be worse. I think if anything, it enhances him. So don't want to go too far down that.
All right, Michelle Parker coming in with a super chat. Sorry I can't do more. Right before payday, lots of love. We just appreciate you joining us, hanging out with us here for an hour. We love it. So thank you very much, Michelle. We really appreciate the donation, and everybody. Yeah, we just love that you're here with us.
And let us know in the comments if it's Michaela or Michelle.
Yeah, sorry,
Carl.
I know. I'm sorry. Not my day. I have been talking to my daughter all day, and so my tongue is not working like it should be today. But Michaela. There we go. I don't.
She'll let us know.
Yeah, you'll let us know. But I really appreciate it. Gary Palmer. See, I got that one right. You guys are great. Good stuff. Really appreciate it, Gary. And appreciate everybody joining us here. But Sutton, he's definitely becoming one of my favorites there with the Broncos. And I
wanted to get to this one by Mr. Orange real quick. And I just finished the Watchmen yesterday with the wife, so I recognize this Mr. Orange now. Was not aware of Dr. Manhattan now. Now I'm in. Very good season. It was fun. But KJ Hamler is 15 yards down the field in a blink of an eye. That will help out the offensive line. Good point. The run game. Good point. And more. Good point. Spencer isn't just a special teams guy. He's a backup wide receiver for Hamler probably. I think if you see Spencer in the offense, that means that somebody got injured or something went wrong. And you'll see some snaps, but there's plays last year where they really tried to get him involved in the middle of the schedule, that Browns game, the Vikings game, et cetera, and it just didn't click. I know he's fast, but just as a receiver, it didn't click. So we'll see. Obviously, things can change. He is really fast, and that is valuable. That'll give him a leg up. But Hamler, good point to him. And it's something also with Hamler and also with Sutton that I think is an interesting point is both those guys separate extremely well and extremely quickly. So now you have a guy like, is it Michelle or is it Michaela? See, we both said it differently. I don't know, Carl. Let us know if Carl or Nick is right. Actually, let us know if Nick is right. If Carl's right, just forget it because, that isn't you have Sutton and Noah Fant, who are much more of the slower developing guys, the home run hitters, and Hamler, who can be a home run hitter too. But Hamler and Jeudy get open so quick that you just have different ways that you can win now and unzip defenses. I don't know if I get a little too dirty there, but that really is helpful for the offense.
Yeah, no, it is. All that should be a great help. But again, it still comes down to if those tackles get beat right away, speed sometimes just doesn't matter. I mean, they could be open down the field and lock somebody in his face. So, I mean, it's all together.
Synergistic. Everything is connected.
Yeah, exactly. And Charlie coming in here. It's Michaela.
Okay.
Man. Okay.
Michelle. I was like, that's not a name, Carl. I don't know that name.
I had a cousin. Her name was Michelle. So I just read the first part and then added an at the end. So that's my bad.
And I do think that, I'm talking about the wide receiver core, so we'll keep talking about it. It's an interesting one for the Broncos this year. I do think that Hamilton still makes this. A tweet here earlier. I did an article way right after the season ended on this topic, but Deshaun Hamilton, before and after Drew Lock, he just in the 5 games with Drew Lock, he had more targets, more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns. However, that being said, Deshaun Hamilton, I really liked him coming out. I liked the route running, but in today's NFL, I think you need to have some sort of explosiveness. You need to stretch vertically or after the catch. And Hamilton is a guy who catches the ball and falls down. Like you might as well be playing, what's the type of game where you played, it's like football as a kid where you're not allowed to run after the catch. You know what I'm saying? Like you catch it and you're down.
We always played the game 500.
Okay, that's kind of like 500, or like in basketball where you can pass the ball, but you're not allowed to dribble at all. You have to be You're down where you catch it. That's essentially the same thing with the exact same thing with Deshaun Hamilton. I mean, he's a catch fall down guy. So, and you saw somebody like KJ Hill in this last draft. A lot of people in Broncos country are clamoring, KJ Hill, he's the all-time leading receiver for Ohio State. Okay, let's add some tape context. That not a special athlete, a catch and fall down guy. So that changes things. And I think now you have a guy like Hamler, you have a guy like Judy. So instead of those quick outs, you're able to get the ball to those explosive guys. And that just makes things so much easier. You have much more potential for explosive plays.
Right. That one step makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be the difference between a 5-yard play and an 80-yard play. You give those speed guys one step and they're gone. And that, I mean, we saw it. I mean, there's plenty of tape out there to show what these guys can bring. Jeff Green, really appreciate you, buddy. Jerry Jeudy, just because he rocks like you guys. Aw, thanks, Jeff. You're so kind. I saw pictures of I think you were hanging out with your daughters earlier on Twitter, and you look like you're a pretty cool dad. I have a daughter as well, so I'm always a daughter dad or dad daughter, whatever you want to. I don't know how you word that, but always love that. But appreciate your donation there. And then Terry Randall coming in here. Drop a like, Broncos country. Terry, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. And, of course, that always helps us get our episode more out there into YouTube and all of the other places when you guys can do some of that. So we really appreciate it. And, man, I hate seeing this. Nick is right. So sorry about that, Michaela. I will.
This platform is the only time I'm right because typically it's the wife. And she says, what's rule number 1, Nick? I am always right. So, and she's, you know what? She's right about that rule. So not even upset about it. That's, gotta marry somebody smarter than you. That's how we improve ourselves, Carl.
It's true. We both married wives that are much smarter than
married
us.
Up. Yes, exactly. Yes. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of good questions coming in here. I see people trying to talk about Albert O's name. That's something. Albert Okuwebunam. You got to say it really fast too. So that way, if you get it wrong, it's just, you're speaking in cursive. So it's fine.
Yeah, that's in Bible college. That's what they taught us. When you're reading names out of the Bible, you don't know. They said, read them fast and read them like you know them. Everybody will just be like, wow, he is so good.
You got it. Yeah. I have the heads up for the, Michael Ojemudia because watching Hawkeye games for all these years, already knew that one. So.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I guess we have a little bit of time left, about 10 minutes left, folks. If you have any questions for you guys, obviously we really appreciate everybody in here watching along with us. Carl, we're going to shift gears here. I'm totally just hijacking it right now. 2021 draft. We'll reach the last 10 minutes. Everybody's going to bail on us now. But 2021 draft, not asking any specifics, but just looking at how this team is built. What would you say are the Broncos' 3 biggest needs for a long-term perspective heading into the 2021 draft or 2021 offseason in general?
So you got offensive tackle and cornerback are the 2 biggest. I mean, the blaring red lights are going. Mm-hmm. I would say the third one is the one that's up for debate. I would honestly put safety up there just because Kareem Jackson, good chance he's probably last year or second to last year. Yeah, probably last year of his contract, or maybe he is done after 2020. We'll see. I mean, just some casualties could be happening. He's up there in age. Traded all for Sewell. Bill, you're a man after my own heart. Yep. That would be great. And and then also, I mean, I do know Justin Simmons is going to get signed long-term at some point, but he's not signed long-term. And then also that third safety spot is another one that we still don't know who's going to be at that spot. So I guess I would put safety as my number 3.
Linebacker is an interesting one as well. You know as well as anybody that I am not the biggest on using a first-round pick on linebacker. That being said, that doesn't seem to be the case for Vic Fangio. Obviously, took Roquan Smith with the Bears when he was there. Roquan Smith, now one of the better coverage linebackers in football. And the Broncos tried to trade up for Patrick Queen, who was my linebacker 1 in last year's class. Isaiah Simmons wasn't a linebacker for me. So, yep, I think that linebacker is an interesting one as well. So we'll see there. Obviously, they need to have coverage ability. That's super duper important. And there are some good linebackers in next year's class. Obviously, you got to rep the Big Ten. Even more Penn State there. The Broncos starting to draft a good amount of Big Ten guys. SEC and Big Ten. If you're drafting in there, you're not going to have an issue. But Micah Parsons, have you watched any of him yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, special.
He's an athlete, that's for sure. Gosh. If you can get him trained up and always going in the right way, and I mean, there's a few times he's almost too athletic.
Yeah,
he can run himself through a play.
There's a name too, Caleb Farley, worth watching. Really interesting. So there's some interesting names here. Offensive line. If it's not offensive tackle, you're not going to see it because obviously they use Glasgow. You have Dalton Reisner. You have Cushenberry. So offensive tackle makes sense. But we'll see here. And Kareem Jackson, that's an interesting one. It's pretty much if it's not offensive tackle, literally any position on defense, I'm fine with.
Yeah. Yeah, they've invested in their offense in the draft for the last couple years. And so it has reached that point now where it's time they can start investing in their defense. And this is kind of how it goes in the NFL. You kind of switch back and forth of who you're paying and who you're not paying. You know, I look at the Chiefs right now. They are paying their offense, even without paying a Patrick Mahomes. They're paying a lot of guys on that offense. I mean, Hill's gotten paid. Kelsey's gotten paid. Their offensive tackles have both gotten paid.
Sammy Watkins is getting paid.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins. Yeah, he got paid.
I'm sorry. That's that article. I can't. He's going to be forever stained in my mind because of that. If you guys haven't seen this yet, there's an article on Bleacher Report involving Sammy Watkins. And let's just say, thank God that guy did not come to Denver because he would be probably the number one beneficiary or the number one spender of multiple dispensaries in the greater Denver metropolitan area because, man, there are some interesting thoughts going on there in that head. So I won't spoil anything. I already implied too much probably, but and I don't want to gas any rival sites too much. But that Sammy Watkins piece on Bleacher Report, make sure you have a beer ready or something because you need to be on a different plane to comprehend what he's talking about.
Well, and I mean, you and I talked about. What is with the Chiefs and having some weird characters? I mean, I guess they are one of those teams that have been willing to take on characters that they've said talent outweighs character. And I mean, and I'm not talking just guys that, I mean, of course we know the Hill story and everything that went on with that, but Larry Johnson was one that he had some interesting views on life, still does. I mean, if you follow him on Twitter, it's pretty comical at times.
Tamba Hali, too.
Yeah.
Really weird, talking about robots in his neighbor's television cameras and like aliens in the lights or something. Like just, wow. What the heck is going on?
All right, well, let's get back to some real questions here. Chandler coming in here. Which young corner do you think will step up for the team this year?
I'll go with Ojemudia. Third-round pick. They've been gassing him up like crazy. And Ojemudia, the things he does well, I mean, there's going to be questions about his ability to play a variety of coverages, press, etc. He doesn't get beat deep, and he doesn't miss tackles. That's an easy way to see the field. You know, even if you're giving up passes in front of you, 5-10 yards, death by 1,000 paper cuts, as long as you're not giving up 80-yard bombs and missing tackles, Fangio's going to probably find a way to get you out there. And they not even talked about that. Yeah. They talked about him as a boundary cornerback or a Will Parks kind of safety / nickel. So I think that Ojemudia is probably the young corner I expect to step up this season, even as a rookie.
I mean, I guess I'll go Duke Dawson because he's going to be that safety / cornerback nickel.
Carl, if he doesn't make the team, I'm going to roast you so hard.
Oh, I know you are. Just like the Paxton Lynch thing. Thanks a lot, guy. I agree. I should be because I've been hyping him up here. I don't know why. I liked his game in college, and I always thought he fit really well in a zone scheme. Now, last year he was not great, but he also joined the team late and missed out on a lot of snaps that I think would have helped him to understand what he's supposed to be doing. There's just a lot of plays he looked very flat-footed because he wasn't sure where he was supposed to be going within the zone. And so an entire offseason with the playbook, I just feel like he's a guy that can really benefit and take that next step that people are going, wow, where'd this guy come from?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. There's also, who was it? Shakiri Taylor is an interesting young name that they stashed last year. There was another one as well. He was from Stanford who was stashed on the practice squad last season that they liked a fair amount. Take a question here. I'll get back to you. I'm going to look this one up.
Okay.
I remember hearing like they like this guy.
But this is a question for you, man.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. David Kilgore coming in here with a super chat. Thanks a lot there, David. What are the good draft or free agent offensive tackles or cornerbacks in 2021? If Bowles and James tanks and our cornerbacks don't do so hot?
Well, it's still early. Caleb Farley is an interesting name from Virginia Tech. Obviously, you have Surtain from Alabama, Sean Wade from Ohio State. Those are the cornerbacks. You have Penny Sewell from Oregon, Samuel Cosme from Texas, Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, Alaric Jackson from Iowa, Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame, Cameron Jackson from Clemson. I know Clemson's been so good for a long time, but they've been trash on the offensive line. And Cameron Jackson, actually, he looks pretty darn good. So he'll be interesting to watch. Oh, and the name I was thinking of was Elijah Holder from Stanford.
Okay.
So that's a dark horse name as well. And you should know Shaquille Taylor, Carl. He's from Kansas.
Well, yeah, I do know him.
Okay.
But I don't know him personally. No, not personally. Sorry. Yeah, let's get him on the show. Come on. I know everybody from Kansas.
Well, maybe we did have Dalton Reisner on. So before he was drafted.
Okay, some free agents for 20. Let's see. Maybe that was 20.
There's a good amount of free agents at offensive tackle, but given the good offensive tackles, folks, if they hit free agency, you should have some alarm bells going off because good tackles do not hit free agency. And if they do, it's rare. I mean, you have, let me try to think of one. Mitchell Schwartz going to the Chiefs, but that's about it I can really think of.
Yeah, I guess the guy that went to the Rams, he was pretty good for a couple years.
But he was like 37 years old.
Right, that's true.
And that's who I wanted to sign, Whitworth.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. Maybe Villanueva, he's 33. I think Nate Soldier could be cut. And I know he hasn't been great, but he's a Colorado guy and obviously worked with Pat Shurmur, so that's a name to watch. David Bakhtiari, maybe wanting to come. Maybe they'll move on from Juwan James Love, Nate Soldier on right tackle, and David Bakhtiari at left tackle. He can really ramp up those buffs for the Broncos. But, we'll see. And Villanueva, Bill 1293 coming in here.
All right. Let's see. I like this one from Charlie Beagle. Will teams do stupid team picture poses after scores in empty stadiums?
Be no different for the Chargers.
Well, yeah. Well, although their stadium's usually full, it's just the opposing team's fans.
That's true.
And given now their old stadium only had like 17 or 20,000 people.
Yeah. I'm
interested to see how many tickets they can actually sell on when they have an actual NFL stadium, 70, 80,000. Can they sell all those tickets? I doubt it.
They messed up real bad. Leaving San Diego is an issue, but also building a stadium. They're pretty much, they should have like really just found a different market, like Orange County instead of the Inglewood, just to kind of have a different Los Angeles going on. Because you have like obviously the Queens and the Bronx thing going on with the Yankees. You have a kind of a different thing going on there with Anaheim and the Dodgers, or obviously the Los Angeles Angels now. But just the fact that they're in the city, not only the same city, but like the same neighborhood, big mistake. So I feel bad too because I really like that Chargers uniform. Yeah, big fun defense. Derwin James is one of my favorite players. non-Broncos in the league, but Jesus, Chargers are trash.
All right. Well, Michaela Parker coming in here with another super chat. Got it right. I'll take the win there. Gronk spiked the like button, folks. Really appreciate that, Michaela. And appreciate all of you joining us here today. And just, again, it's been a fun show. This is always the fastest hour of my week. And, I mean, I can't believe it's already up here. Man.
And I appreciate everyone talking about how much they appreciated I see Brian Kraft has asked multiple times, Nick, how was my beverage tonight? My beverage was cold and delicious. Drink local, folks. Whether that be, soda pop or whatever you drink, drink responsibly. And that includes your soda, even your water. So that's probably going to wrap up today, unless you see any other questions there, Carl, that are worth hitting real quick.
Jerry Holland coming in here. What do you guys think about the Broncos being predicted to go 3-13 and last in our division?
Trash.
Yeah.
Once the Broncos have 3 wins by week 5, let's say 5 at the latest. Oh no, let's say they'll have 4 wins, I think, by the bye. Right? That's 7-8 games before the bye is week 9.
Yeah.
I'm going to at Nick Wright, Broncos country. We're going to round it up. We're just going to poop on him. I mean, we did that to Adam Rank last year, and I know that's not always the adult thing to do, but it's Twitter. Come on.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be stupid and get paid to have stupid opinions like that, then you have everything coming to you. Just like if you say Paxton Lynch is going to be good, Carl, then you have everything coming to you.
I do. I remember there was a guy, can't remember who he was, but back in 2015 when Peyton went down with injury, he said the Broncos will not win another game. And then the Broncos went 5-2 over their next games and, of course, won the Super Bowl. And every week I would tweet him and say, hey, thought Broncos weren't going to win another game. And he did block me by week 3. So that was on me. I was being a little petty. I not my best moment, but it was kind of one of those, like everybody was just like, this team is going to fail. And I'm like, they're not winning because of Peyton. I mean, he was a big part of the leadership side of things, but the defense was obviously winning games, those 15-12 kind of games. And so it just made me go, of course, they can still score a couple points and still win games. But anyway, yeah, that's one of my stories of kind of dunking on somebody after they said the Broncos were going to fail miserably.
Also, it's sports. It's in good fun. If you take it too seriously, then there's another issue to talk about. Granted, we're here talking football a lot. Maybe we do take it too seriously, but gosh darn, I love it. I wouldn't spend my time any other way. Guys, we're going to get on out of here. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH. You can find myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Going over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. We check those periodically, so we really do appreciate those comments, and your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content, Dub Valley Deep Divers, obviously the Huddle Up podcast, all on there on the Huddle Up, wherever you find these podcasts, Spotify, etc. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. Carl, anything you want to talk about real quickly before we get on out of here? Any other things getting in here?
Well, just wanted to say thank you, David, for another super chat coming in here last second. Appreciate all of you guys joining us today once again. It's been a great episode. You even gave Nick a 2021 draft conversation. And there's even times in our Facebook chat that we say, Nick, not yet. So I'm sure he really appreciated that tonight. And I'm just excited for hopefully we'll get some football news coming up and what they're going to be doing. And we'll make sure you're tuning into Mile High Huddle because we're going to have it all for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see some people talking about 3-13. Here's James Campbell with the thing. 3-13 may not be enough for Lawrence, but that might get you a Trey Lance or Justin Fields. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Broncos aren't going 3-13. And if they did, that means that Drew Lock was not the guy. So, then you go back to the drawing board. Maybe even you get an Aaron Rodgers in here. But we'll see what happens. So thanks, guys, so much. We really appreciate you all. You guys are the best. Obviously, Jay Stepp coming in here with his Mile High Huddle shirt. Buana Beast, Bill 129, James Campbell, Charlie's Beagle, Jay Bass coming in, Jerry Holden. Heck yeah, Nick. Love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Until then, go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.